Okay, let's begin the public talk. Good evening, good afternoon actually, not evening yet, good afternoon. And it's a pleasure to be here. It's wonderful to have our friends here with us today to talk about a very important topic that is unfortunately continuously applied here in this region. I will start asking my special guests and speakers to the stage so we can start the talk, and I will explain the structure of today's event very soon. Okay, once again, thank you very much for your time and for being here today. I will ask my special guests to introduce themselves in less than a minute, if possible, please, just to tell us the relevance of their background and who they are. I'll start with Dr. Gurgen, please. Introduce yourself first, please.
Slav Khoshalem. My name is Gurgen Petrossian. I represent International Nuremberg Principles Academy. I'm the Senior Legal Officer for International Criminal Law. My whole background is connected to the international law and international criminal law. We work with the International Criminal Court, mostly on the reform side, trying to accelerate the proceedings before International Criminal Court. We try to bring awareness on the universal jurisdiction in different legal systems, how the domestic authorities should work with the atrocities that have been committed in different crimes. Maybe also about my origins. I'm based in Germany. Originally, I'm Armenian. I worked also in Armenia. Especially for me, it was important that the Armenian government decided to join International Criminal Court, because we as Armenians, for us it was important that we as a country that suffered a lot because of international crimes, we are part of this community of International Criminal Court. And of course, personally, I'm very much warmly welcomed in Kurdistan, and I feel really like this is my second home. Thank you very much for all your hospitality.
Thank you very much for your amazing work in the past few days. You have been with us all around Kurdistan. It has been a real privilege for us, so welcome here to Kurdistan again. I just want to remind ourselves as we engage in today's talk that it's not just the legal frameworks that we examine, it's not just the political implications or other factors that impact international criminal law here. Behind every courtroom's decision, behind every legal decision, there is a human story. And I think that's what's important, and that's why KCIL and all other partners have been really reluctant to continue to work on such matters because of the importance of such topic. I will briefly tell you the structure of today's event. So we will have 15 minutes each for each of our speakers to deliver their talk, and then we will have a coffee break. Then we come back to discussions and questions if there are any to further engage in today's discussion. With that, I welcome you once again, and I will start by asking Dr. Gurgen to begin your talk, please. Thank you.
So, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear representatives of the executive, legislative, and judicial organs of Kurdistan, dear Lieutenant Colonel Bakhtiar Sadiq, this is my honor to be here and to speak here on the example of the Nagorno-Karabakh. As I mentioned, I'm Armenian, and the topic that I'm going to explain you, I'm not going into the politics, but I'm going to tell you the legal consequences, especially what are these legal mechanisms that arises because of different conflicts where international crimes and international law may be violated. In my 15 minutes, I will go very quickly historically what happened in Nagorno-Karabakh, where it is actually situated and what's exactly happened. I will go through the current situation, and then we'll go through the legal proceedings that are running before European Court of Human Rights, before International Court of Justice, possible initiatives before International Criminal Court, and possible universal jurisdiction cases. Well, on the picture you see here 2023 September, where the Armenian population was forced to flee from Nagorno-Karabakh region. Many international experts looking at this picture especially, they say, well, the Armenians were actually not deported from Nagorno-Karabakh because they decided to leave the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh. This is around 100,000 people that were forced to leave. But in case of when we speak about a deportation, deportation is not a physical deportation. Also, if you create a psychological atmosphere and you force the people to leave the area, it is already can qualify as a crime against humanity or other types of international crimes. Well, where exactly Nagorno-Karabakh situated? As you can see on the geographical map here on the Google map, we have the Armenia over here, we have the Azerbaijan, and we have the Georgia. On the western part is the Turkey. The borders to Turkey are closed, and the borders to the eastern neighbor are also closed. The Nagorno-Karabakh is situated over here. The whole territory of Nagorno-Karabakh is now empty from Armenians. Ethnically, Armenians were living there around 150,000 for a very long time, together with Azerbaijanis, also for the very long time during the Soviet times. But unfortunately, because of the war that erupted because of the movement of the Armenians or decisions of the Armenians to join the Soviet Republic of Armenia, it became a little bit bloody. And you can see on the pictures here that present the demonstrations that happened in Baku, in Stepanakert, and in Yerevan in order to call the central government in Soviet Union in Moscow that the Armenians living in Nagorno-Karabakh should join actually the Soviet Republic of Armenia. But then these repressions became very cruel, as I mentioned, which led to a war between Nagorno-Karabakh as an enclave against Azerbaijan, and Nagorno-Karabakh was considered as for the Republic of Armenia some sort of a security partner. There are UN resolutions that are from the United Nations that are considering that the territories around the Nagorno-Karabakh, you can also see on the map that the territory of Nagorno-Karabakh, which is the following. But because of the war, also the regions around Nagorno-Karabakh went under the control of the Armenians of the Nagorno-Karabakh. There are around 7 regions, and the United Nations resolutions were explicitly mentioning that these regions should be given back to Azerbaijan. However, the Armenian government of Nagorno-Karabakh didn't want to give these regions, but unless to go into the negotiations under which guarantees the regions may be given back. Of course, the whole conflict resulted to mass human rights violations. In 90s, also the Azerbaijanis who were living in that regions were forced to leave the territory that fall under the control of the Armenians. The Armenians also were living in Azerbaijan, in Baku, in Sumgait, and Azerbaijanis were living in the Republic of Armenia. This conflict caused also that there was an exchange of population. So all Armenians living in Azerbaijan, and because of these violations that were happening in Azerbaijan, were forced to leave to Armenia and other countries like to Russia, Georgia, and other countries. And also similar thing happened in Armenia. So the Azerbaijanis living in Armenia, they also went to other countries, and also especially coming to Azerbaijan. Well, the whole negotiations, as you can see with the whole developments, were not successful. There were several negotiations between Armenia and Azerbaijan, how exactly the conflict should be solved. That led to an escalation in 2016, which is known as an April war for 4 days. This led also to violation of international humanitarian law, and of course to some war crimes committed against the Armenians. In 2020, the war started, escalated, the second war of Nagorno-Karabakh, which ended up with the defeat of the Armenian soldiers. And there was a statement by the Russian president, the prime minister of Armenia, and of course the president of Azerbaijan, agreeing on 9 points. However, some of the points are still are not done. The regions of Nagorno-Karabakh, around Nagorno-Karabakh, are given back to Azerbaijan. However, the guarantees that has been also agreed by the parties, some of them are still not completed. Well, the current status after this territorial statement by the parties, the escalation continued. The escalation continued also on the territory of Republic of Armenia. There was several attempts by the Azerbaijani soldiers to go a little bit deeper into the Armenian territory, as the main thing that the Azerbaijan politics are demanding is to have the Zangezur corridor, so known as Zangezur corridor, which will connect the Nakhichevan region with the Azerbaijan. So the politics of Azerbaijan is not to have just a corridor, like 5-kilometer corridor, but to have a clear connection between the Nakhichevan and Azerbaijan, which will of course cut Armenia from the southern part of its southern part of borders. This led, of course, in 2023, it led to, I'm sorry for these technical issues, I'm sorry. Yep. This led to the situation that the Armenians were then, in 2023, different escalations happened in different parts of the borders between Armenia and Azerbaijan. In 2023, it led to the mass exodus of the Armenians from Azerbaijan. Now I'm coming to the proceedings before the European Court of Human Rights. Well, these violations that were happening since 1990s landed before the European Court of Human Rights because both parties are member to the Council of Europe, accordingly to member to the European Court of Human Rights. Here we have, and I've brought you some judgments that are already final. You can see that maybe you know that the judgments before the European Court of Human Rights, they take for a long time. They are taking for 10 years, 8 years. And in these cases, we have especially interesting jurisprudence developed by the Sargsyan against Azerbaijan and Chiragov against Armenia. This is regarding the property that is situated on the territory that fell under the both controls. In case of Sargsyan, it was the territory that was under the Azerbaijani control, and in case of Chiragov was a case that was under the Armenian control. So both of them were mostly claiming that the property, as soon as they have the right to the property, they want compensation for the property that was left behind, and of course the access to the property. And in both cases, these are the mirroring cases, and in both cases the European Court of Human Rights mentioned that the access to the property should be given to the complainants. However, an interesting fact was established here. I will not go maybe too much into the details, but just to let you know that even we speak about international law and human rights, we also speak about the property rights, of course, and connected other rights that has been violated. Another important aspect or the judgment that is the essential in this conflict is about Makuchan or Minasyan against Azerbaijan. These court proceedings refer to the racial discrimination, very highly presented in Azerbaijan. This was one Azerbaijani soldier who participated in Budapest to the NATO trainings with Armenian officers. And while the Armenian officer was sleeping, he axed the Armenian soldier, claiming that he made a vengeance against the Armenians for the losses that were in 90s. He was convicted for murder in Hungary, but then the Azerbaijani government requested extradition so he can serve his sentence in Azerbaijan. as the Azerbaijan gave some guarantees to Hungary that he will continue having his sentence. But as soon as the person arrived in Baku, he was welcomed with flowers, with medals, and it was as a kind of glorification of the murderer. And the victims of the representative of the Armenian soldier, they claim that this can't actually be accepted if that is also on the governmental level. This kind of glorification is happening because it gives an example, prototype also for the others to behead the Armenians and to receive the same glorification by the government. So as I mentioned, this racial discrimination that is present in Azerbaijan led to another cases before International Court of Justice. These proceedings are ongoing. Especially these are also mirrored cases, and there is still no judgment. However, we have some results already from International Court of Justice. The first case is Armenia against Azerbaijan and Azerbaijan against Armenia, but these proceedings should be also considered within the context of the events that were happening since 2020. So the Armenian population that was firstly that was still in Nagorno-Karabakh since 2022, they were under the blockade. So Azerbaijan closed all streets, the connections to Republic of Armenia, which caused a famine in Nagorno-Karabakh and led to the situation that the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, they didn't have any access to the medicine, to food, and other important stuff. And these provisional measures that were brought against the Azerbaijan by the Republic of Armenia, all these provisional measures were granted. However, Azerbaijan did not comply with the provisional measures. Similarly, Azerbaijan brought in the mirror case the provisional measures against Armenia. The main topic of the Azerbaijan is saying that the Armenians are putting landmines around the Republic of Armenia in order to prohibit the advantage of the Azerbaijani soldiers into the Republic of Armenia and also in Nagorno-Karabakh. But the court in this particular case found that the landmines are not connected to the racial discrimination. So the landmines cannot really focus who is actually stepping on the landmine. That's why it is out of the jurisdiction of the particular situation. An interesting and important part was after the war, there was a parade organized in Baku. And the president of the Republic of Azerbaijan created a trophy park where he mentioned, where he pictured also the Armenian soldiers as puppets. And you can see that in this trophy park, it was also possible to kind of play with the Armenian soldiers. And you can see also here the helms of the fallen Armenian soldiers as presented as a trophy, which is actually a violation of the human rights and was addressed by the International Court of Justice. The Armenians are frequently called as dogs, as barbarians, as a virus more dangerous than the coronavirus. And they even established a stamp for the post stamp with a person who is cleansing the Nagorno-Karabakh area from Azerbaijani territory. The final provisional measures refer also to the deportation. Again, here the International Court of Justice found that the Armenians should have the access to go back. However, every Armenian is scared to go back to Nagorno-Karabakh because we don't know what may happen to them. As mentioned, in case of in the mirrored case against Armenia, Azerbaijan is also claiming that the landmines, but I already mentioned that. I will quickly go
30 seconds to conclude, please.
I will go also quickly through Armenia. Armenia became the member to the ICC, as I mentioned, and it also recognized the jurisdiction of the ICC retroactively. This means that the crime of deportation as such, as a continuing crime, falls under the jurisdiction of the ICC. There were already communications brought before International Criminal Court mentioning that the ICC should start a preliminary examination, but this kind of negotiations are still ongoing. We need to not forget that Azerbaijan is not member to the ICC, but I think this is something that we can discuss at the discussions. With this, I will end here, and maybe in the discussion, if you have questions, I will be very happy to address them. Thank you very much for your attention. Spas.